Hey guys, and welcome back to Battlefront updates and some Star Wars Battlefront 2 news. I've got nothing too major today, but there has been a couple of topics that have been hot in the community over the last week or so that I thought we'd discuss and get some of the developer responses in there as well. Starting off, of course, with the bugs caused by the last patch. There has been a lot of issues with lightsaber combat after the last patch, especially with the hitboxes being all weird, where sometimes you get hit by a lightsaber although they're like 10 meters away. And obviously this is something that has caused a lot of frustration within the community, because yet again we get more bugs in this game. And when asked for getting a hotfix or not for this, Ben did say that they're still discussing that, and in response to some complaints of that, he said it's more of what happens if we do patch and the knock-on effect to our development schedule for the September update. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction, or something like that. And then continuing, which is why we're being extra careful. One thing we don't want is to rush out a fix only to find it caused something else, and before we know it, it's a comedy sketch of a dog chasing its own tail. So I can understand that. Obviously they do have a lot of issues with bugs, both introducing them too often and also having trouble fixing them properly. So I would, as much as I'd really hate these bugs, I don't think they're at the point where I would prefer them to be fixed over getting all the September stuff delayed, like all the single player modes, Fallujah and the Commando. So I can understand that take on it. I still don't think it's good. So I'm a little bit torn on what the best thing here to do is. I mean, obviously a hotfix would be the best thing, but would it be worth it if the September patch gets delayed? And like you said, what if it just makes it worse? Because that's unfortunately been an issue quite a lot of times, where they've said that a specific thing has been fixed, but then it hasn't been fixed, because I'm assuming it's maybe fixed in one scenario, but then in 10 other scenarios it's not fixed, and that's why it's in the patch notes, but it's actually not fixed. So there's been a lot of discussion in the community, and I've seen mixed reactions to it, where some people are like, well, I'm playing an hour per day and I barely notice any bugs at all, whereas all the more hardcore players who know every little part of the game will notice those bugs a lot more than everyone else. And I don't play lightsaber heroes too much, but I've really noticed that sometimes you can die from a lightsaber hero, but it feels like you're really from a safe distance, which is a very frustrating way to die in the game. So I just hope we're still getting a hotfix somehow, but and that they're still able to get the September patch out in time. But again, just don't make it worse. I would rather wait until September patch to have it completely fixed than have a hotfix that makes it even worse, and then we're in some really bad situation. I don't know, how bad do you guys think the bugs after the latest patch is? Please let me know in the comments below. I'm sure a lot of you have played more than I have since the patch, so I'm curious what you think of the current state of the game. Because in terms of bugs, it's in a pretty bad state, I would say, but in terms of future content and content we have received so far, it's in a pretty good state. So the good thing is that we have a lot of good stuff to look forward to. Moving on, we have some other news that has really riled up the community, which is the fact that former FIFA boss David Rutter has been made Group General Manager of EA Studios Europe, which means he will be overseeing DICE, Criterion and Ghost Games. So David, as far as I understand, has been credited as one of the people behind the success of FIFA over the last 12 years. Obviously FIFA has been EA's big cash cow, where the Ultimate Team has just generated billions of dollars to them. And a few years ago they said something that they wanted to bring that kind of system into, well, other games like Battlefield and Star Wars. And obviously they tried that at the launch of Battlefront 2, and they realized that is not gonna work out. But now that he has joined the EA Studios in Europe, a lot of people were worried that they're gonna bring that back to Battlefront or Battlefield, and I guess other games that Ghost and Criterion are working on. And I will agree, it is a little bit worrying, but on the other hand, I'm not too worried, because you all saw what happened at the launch of Battlefront 2. That was the worst part for EA, I think, ever, and DICE in particular. So there's no way they're just gonna go straight back to that. They've done a fantastic job over the last 2 years of building Battlefront 2 and its reputation back up, and now it's actually in a pretty good state, except for the bugs, especially when it comes to the content and all the stuff they've done for free to the community. And on top of that, when this popped up on Reddit, Ben responded saying, no, actually, we've had a loot box conversation multiple times before, so we're not going to do so again. A lesson learned is a lesson earned, as the Clone Wars states. And they also said, in response to someone saying that DICE are dead in the water, David has been working with DICE for a while now, before we announced the content through the rest of 2019, which he is a supporter of. So I'm really not that worried, and something I've said for like a year now is that They will most likely, if they continue with Battlefront 2 in 2020, introduce some type of more monetization to the game, whether that's a new box they can release, some new microtransactions, something that gives them a constant flow of income to pay all the developers, because I don't think they would support the game for 3 years after launch if they're not at least making the money back. And it's obvious that the skins don't seem to be the solution to that, because if it was, they would be pumping out as many skins as, well, other skin-driven games are, like Apex or Overwatch or similarly, but they're not doing that, which means I think they're probably focusing on other stuff, and maybe David will help them find some way to monetize it in a fair way. That's what I think. I don't know if David is the right person for it, since obviously he's done that for like FIFA, and sure, people seem to be used to the way FIFA works, but from an outside perspective and my perspective, it seems like just a pay-to-win game. You just pay a lot of money to get a chance to get players, basically, and that's kind of what they tried to do with the launch of Battlefront 2, but the community showed that we will not accept that, and that's not okay. So I'm really not worried that something that bad is going to happen for Battlefront 2. It's just no way. There's no way they're going to go from the really community-friendly way they have right now with microtransactions to the worst thing ever. Some things will probably be introduced at some point. I still really don't know what, if we're talking maybe like crystal exclusive skins, or maybe some type of paid expansion, although I highly doubt that, or a new box that they can release, like an ultimate edition with all the skins. Just something, you know, because they're obviously getting a lot of new players, and I'd imagine that they will get even more new players around Rise of Skywalker. So it would make sense for them to have some type of new box that they can sell, because right now I think you can get the game for like $5–10, so I don't think they're making a lot of money from that either. But that's really the big things I wanted to discuss today. I'm really curious what your thoughts are on both the state of the game as for the bugs, and also about David Rutter joining EA Sweden, and basically the monetization overall. I'm curious if you guys have any like good idea of how can they make some more money from this game without pissing off the community, giving people like myself a reason to spend money on the game, considering that I want to spend money on the game. I played this for like 1,000 hours, so I'm totally willing to buy some crystals, but I just don't have a reason to do that now. So what can they add that gives me a reason to spend money, but that does not alienate the majority of the community that might not want to spend money on the game? I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm really curious if you have any good solution or idea for that. But yeah, that's all for the video. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, may the force be with you.